No one's going to spit it out, let's put it that way. So today, we are going to be making personal pan lasagna. I've never made lasagna before, and I've never heard of making lasagna as a personal pan meal, so we are truly trying something new. To make this personal pan lasagna, I'm going to need 4 steps: pasta, tomato sauce, bechamel, and construction. For the pasta, we will use 2 parts egg to 3 parts flour by weight. I'm going to use semolina, 00, and all-purpose flour, then add a pinch of salt. For the tomato sauce, we will use sausage, onion, garlic, salt, red pepper, black pepper, crushed tomatoes, basil, thyme, and tomato paste. Oh, and I almost forgot, white wine. For the bechamel, we will use butter, flour, salt, white pepper, and milk. For the construction, we will alternate layers of pasta and tomato sauce or pasta and bechamel with Parmesan and goat cheese. When we are done, we'll bake it in the oven for about 45 minutes. First, we will start with the pasta dough, since the pasta dough needs to rest to let the gluten relax after you knead it. So let's get started. First step, making the pasta dough. I'm going to use 3 eggs. Since the pasta dough is 2 parts egg to 3 parts flour by weight, I need to find the weight of my 3 eggs. I see my 3 eggs weigh 153 grams, so each part is 76.5 grams, and I need a total of 229.5 grams of flour. However, since I'm using equal amounts of semolina, 00, and all-purpose flour, I can just weigh out 76.5 grams of each flour. First, the all-purpose flour. You can make pasta with just all-purpose flour, but I like the flavor and chew better if you mix flour types. Next, the semolina. Semolina is ground durum wheat. This is a lower gluten flour and will soften your pasta up. It also adds a bit of bite to the flavor. Finally, the 00. 00 flour is extremely finely ground flour, and it will help you to build the structure and chew to your pasta. Now, I like to add a pinch of salt to the dough, especially since I'm not going to boil this pasta in salt water. It will just help the flavor of the pasta sheets. Mix the dry ingredients together so they don't clump. I like to create a divot in the middle that I will add my eggs to. Break up the yolks first and then stir to slowly incorporate more and more flour. This is not as important as usual since I am mixing in a bowl instead of on my counter. Now, spread some flour on the counter. This is just all-purpose flour. Dump out the shaggy dough and start to knead it to get it fully incorporated. You may need to add a little flour from time to time, but the more you add, the tougher your pasta will be, so try not to add more than you need to. You know you're done kneading your pasta when you can press your finger into the dough ball and the indentation springs back. This looks pretty good to me. Now, wrap the dough in plastic wrap and place it in the fridge to let it rest. Resting allows the gluten to relax and makes the dough easier to shape. The second main step is to make my tomato sauce. I'm going to start with about 3/4 pound of hot Italian sausage. Dump that into a pan that I've just turned on to medium heat. You could wait for the pan to preheat so that it will brown the sausage faster, but in this case I'm more concerned with rendering some of the fat from the sausage, so this will work just fine. While the sausage cooks, dice half an onion and slice 2 cloves of garlic. Just remember to check, stir, and break up your sausage from time to time while prepping your other ingredients. When the sausage is cooked and has some nice brown bits, remove it from the pan. Without cleaning the pan, add diced onion. All those brown bits stuck to the bottom will flavor the onion and make the sauce taste better. While the onion sweats, grind up some dried basil and dried thyme. When the onions have softened and are just starting to brown, add red pepper to the pan. By adding it to the pan before we add any watery liquids, we will heat the pepper and release more of the flavor. Then add garlic. The red pepper and garlic will become fragrant in just a few seconds. When they are fragrant, add a glass of white wine. I'm using a 187 milliliter mini bottle of Chardonnay. The liquid in the wine will deglaze the pan, pulling up any remaining brown sausage and cool the pan to keep the garlic from burning. After the liquid is in the pan, add your ground basil and thyme. Herbs should be added after the liquid because otherwise they will overheat and lose some of their flavor. Once you have your herbs in the pan, add a can of crushed tomatoes. This is a case where there is no advantage to using fresh instead of canned. Unless the can is very old or has been stored at a very high temperature, the canned tomatoes taste no different than fresh, and they will speed up cooking significantly. After you've stirred the sauce, add the sausage back in. Next, add some tomato paste. Tomato paste comes in a can, but I prefer to buy the tubes because you can store them in your fridge and use them multiple times. You don't have to use a whole can at a time. One of the keys to giving your food the chef vibe is to taste as you go to adjust salt, pepper, and any other seasonings. I would frequently use red wine vinegar in a sauce like this, but this time I felt like the tomatoes had added enough acid that I didn't need to. It did, however, taste like it needed some black pepper. Using fresh ground pepper will significantly increase the potency of the pepper, so you won't need nearly as much. The sauce also needed salt. I strongly suggest using a salt cellar instead of a shaker when you cook. It gives you much better control of the amount of salt you use. Taste it again, and that is much better. Now just let it simmer with the lid on for about an hour to meld the flavors together. Okay, so it's been about an hour. The sauce became a little too thick, so I added some water. Now it has come together nicely, and it's time to start making my bechamel. Bechamel can become too thick if you make it ahead of time, so you want this to finish right as you finish rolling out your pasta. Because of this, I rolled out my pasta while I made my bechamel. Because this involves multitasking, it is one of the most difficult aspects of this dish. First, we add about 2 tablespoons of butter to a pan and melt it. We will use this to make a roux by adding flour. The roux will be the base of my bechamel. This is also a good time to preheat the oven to 350 degrees. While the butter is melting, we can add some salt and white pepper. White pepper tastes very similar to black pepper, but looks nicer in a white sauce. Turn down the heat and we can start on the pasta. The dough is rested, so we can go ahead and set up the pasta roller attachment on the KitchenAid. Sprinkle flour on the work surface and the pasta roller. Start by hand stretching the dough a little bit to get it ready to go in the pasta roller. Sprinkle flour on both sides of the pasta so that it won't stick to the roller. Turn the KitchenAid on low, make sure the roller is set as wide as possible, and run the dough through the roller. You can fold this over and run through the roller at the same setting, but I usually don't bother. Cut the pasta in half and you will see the dough pull in on itself as the gluten relaxes. Run 1/2 through, decrease the size by 1, and run it through again. Flour between each time so it doesn't stick, and keep doing this until the pasta is translucent. You should be able to see your fingers through the pasta sheets. I think this looks pretty good, and I have the number down to 5. Now use a ring the same size as your pan so that we can form layers. The butter is melted and about to brown. I don't want that to happen, so I need to add flour now. I'm going to add enough flour so that I'm forming fairly thick clumps of roux. Let the flour cook while I continue cutting out pasta rings. You want as many pasta rings as you can form from your dough. Once you've finished that, you can collect the leftovers that you can use if you need to. First, though, we will roll out the other half of the pasta. The roux is cooked, so I need to whisk it up and add milk. You need to break up the clumps and stir in the roux. Because the fat in the butter is separating the gluten in the flour, it will whisk in without forming clumps. Now finish rolling out my pasta down to the same setting as before so I get the same thickness. Then cut out rings just like before. This is probably enough rings. Back to the bechamel that has become thick at the bottom, so we need to whisk that together to finish the bechamel. And now we are ready to start construction. I'm going to start by constructing 2 lasagnas, and then, if I have enough materials left over, I will make a third. I'm using many springform pans and they will not be watertight, so I have lined a small baking sheet with tin foil and placed the pans in the baking sheet. The first layer is just a sheet of pasta. Next, some tomato sauce. If you didn't break the sausage up enough, you may have to break up some pieces now. Then another layer of pasta. After that, we add bechamel. The sauce needs to be spread out so it covers the pasta. Then we grate some Parmesan over the top. Continue adding layers alternating tomato sauce and bechamel until the pan is full. I added Parmesan and sometimes goat cheese to the bechamel layers. End with tomato sauce on top and grate some Parmesan over the top. I add enough material to go ahead and make a third lasagna. This goes into the oven for about 45 minutes. When it comes out, it looks like this. You need to let it cool for just a few minutes so that you will be able to remove it from the pan. It took me a little bit to figure out how to plate it up, but I think it looks pretty good. I served it with a Malbec from Coyote Canyon in Washington State. It was absolutely delicious. If you'd like to make something similar, I'd love to know about it. Tell me what you did different in the comments. Tag me at @thechefvibe on Instagram and show me your photos, or just hit the like button and subscribe to let me know you want me to make more videos. Whatever you do, have fun cooking, and remember, if you want the chef vibe, you need to play with your food.